Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Okay, I want to talk about this Wall Street Journal article. It came out in June of 2024, and it says the shortcut that allows risky startups to raise billions from rookie investors. And the subtitle is Crowdfunded Companies Pulling Cash Through Sleek Social Media Promotions and Mentions of Elon Musk. Um, and here's a big picture of the the Gamma prototype. Um, Wait, is this Gamma or is this Luna? Well, I think this is Luna. Yeah, this is Luna. Now, if you this article, I've actually been waiting for this article for months now. Um, there is I'm in contact with several Aptera engineers, former engineers from time to time. And I'm also in contact with some people that I can only assume they are current or former employees of Aptera. They know way too much information to not be have been inside of Aptera at some point. And one in particular is pretty pessimistic about Aptera and has been telling me from months ago that that Aptera was being investigated by the Wall Street Journal, and that there is going to be a pretty scathing expose piece on Aptera released in the Wall Street Journal. I can only assume that this is the article that they are talking about, and it's pretty underwhelming actually. I don't think there's anything in here that I didn't know, or that most of us didn't already know, and there is no scandal here. Like I thought they were gonna say that, like, you know like Steve or Chris were like embezzling money from Aptera or something like that. I mean, I would be surprised because when I met these guys, they seemed like good guys, and but I thought it was gonna be something like that, or they were like giving special deals to their family members or friends where they could get stock for much cheaper, or or that there was never any intent to produce or anything like that. But there was none of that. It was just all stuff that we knew about. Now, there was some of that for Boxable, so that was a little interesting. Um, but basically, like, you guys should read this article. I mean, it's interesting. I think overall there's like facts in this article that are true, but then their conclusion is that here's their conclusion. Their conclusion is that basically crowdfunding um, takes advantage of low information investors. What Wall Street calls dumb money. I don't know if you guys ever watched that movie, Dumb Money. It's about the GameStop short thing, but basically, um, hedge funds, Wall Street, large finance calls retail investors dumb money because we just don't have as much information as they do. We don't have as much time as they do, and we don't have as much money as they do. And we don't have the ability to manipulate the markets like they do. And so they feel like retail investors just um, are not sophisticated and are basically suckers that they can take money from. That's kind of the gist of it. Um, and this article kind of plays into that narrative that that people that are not professional investors are gullible and easy to fool, and that there are companies that are taking advantage of this and fleecing people. And they are using Aptera and Boxable as examples of this. Now, there's nothing to say in this article that Aptera is doing anything unethical or running a scam. They're just saying, oh, Aptera has like sleek social media campaigns, and they generate a lot of interest, and they've been very successful at crowdfunding. So I think what they're doing is they just pick two companies that have been very successful at crowdfunding and use them as examples. Now they're saying there's no cars in sight. This is true. There have been timeline slippage, and that's very true. But I mean that happens with even with established companies. Remember, the Roadster 2 was supposed to come out in 2022. Tesla's Roadster 2 was supposed to come out in 2022. Well, it's 2024. There's no Tesla Roadster 2 out. The Cybertruck was delayed multiple years as well. I mean, it's just hard to deliver a vehicle. Um, it's not easy, and it's doubly not easy when you're a startup and you're trying to find funding at the same time as trying to engineer a vehicle. I mean, Tesla has a ton of money. They can just spend their time engineering the vehicle, and they still haven't done it. So it's just hard. So I think that's unfair to say that because there's no cars in sight that Aptera is taking advantage of investors. But that's kind of what they're saying in this article, and I think that's not a fair thing to say. Now, Boxable evidently was paying they're paying themselves a lot of money. I think this article was pretty damning for Boxable, and not so damning for Aptera. Aptera, I think they're just basically saying Aptera is super high risk, and so is Boxable. Startups are very high risk. If you have an idea that's flashy and generates a lot of social media interest, then you can be successful in crowdfunding, and that people that get into crowdfunding are low information investors and are probably going to lose their money. And I would say that I would agree with like a lot of that. But as I've always said on this channel, like if you're investing in Aptera and you think of this as a money making investment, that's probably not. It's probably not wise. Your chances of making money on any startup is very, very low. And that's even if you are a high information investor. So like venture capital success rates are like failure rates are like 70 to 90%. So 70 to 90% of venture capital backed funds, startups die. They do not return any investment to their startup. And these are professional investors. These are people where the founders have to come pitch them and open their books and give them like all the information. As a crowdfunder, like if you're investing $1,000 into Aptera is not pitching you in person. You do not get to look at all their books and ask them all kinds of questions and grill them in front of you like venture capitalists do. And so the success rate for crowdfunding is, I'm going to guess, is even less than venture capital backed funds. And venture capital funds are very picky about who they fund. They will evaluate I think they fund like less than 1% of the pitches that they get. And so even being very picky like that, their success rate is only like 10 to 30% at best. And so these are all true statements. But if you look at this is what I found interesting. Let's see here. Yeah. So despite Boxable's bleeding cash, Paolo and Galliano Tirimani both awarded bonuses of $300,000 last year. That's on top of their annual salary of $600,000. That is literally insane. So they have a company that's bleeding money, not making any cash, not really delivering any products. They're paying themselves $600,000 a year and then giving themselves $300,000 bonuses. So they're basically paying themselves $900,000 a year. That is crazy. Now, Steve and Chris are paying themselves like mid 200s per year, which like in San Diego is not a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. I mean, that is well above the median amount, and I'm sure that they have mortgages to pay and things like that in San Diego, which is quite expensive. I think if you wanted to run a company, and this is just me as an outsider, I can dispassionately um, take the moral high ground because I have no skin in the game. So I'm just like armchair quarterbacking this thing. So that's really not fair to do. But if you wanted to run a startup company and show that as a founder you're really invested in it, I think you would take like the bare minimum that you need to survive. Now, I'm sure that Steve and Chris are not wealthy. They need a salary. They need money to survive. Um, do they need $250,000? Probably not. They could. I'm sure they could. You could scrape by for less. You could probably. I'm sure you can survive in San Diego even for $100,000 or a little over $100,000. I mean, you're not gonna live well. You're gonna drive a crappy car. You're probably gonna live in a small house, and you're not gonna go out much. Um, but then that would show all your investors that you are completely committed to this thing. Like if if the company succeeds, you're going to do very well financially because as a founder, you have lots of stock um, and equity in the company, and you're putting your sweat equity in the thing. But if it fails, then you've basically been scraping by, barely surviving for the many years that the company has been running, and you've basically got a lot of skin in the game. If you're paying yourself a comfortable salary, then if the company goes south, then you don't get your money out. Your equity in the company is not worth anything. But you've had several years of a comfortable living, and you had fun running a company with your idea. So there is some there's some thought process to how much you pay yourselves as founders, I think. I'm not super familiar with this, but what these guys are doing, Tiramani, they're paying themselves $900,000 a year. That is that does seem like to me that they're fleecing their investors. Like you have crowdfunders that are you're just taking their money and just pumping it straight into your bank account. This is not like you're living comfortably. Without you're not like struggling to live. I think Steve and Chris have paid themselves a salary that allows them to live comfortably. And by comfortably, I don't mean extravagantly or luxuriously. I mean like they're not having to worry about whether they can make their mortgage payments, and they're not worrying about like whether they can buy food at the grocery store, that kind of stuff. I think if they were paying themselves $100,000 a year or a little over 100,000 a year, I think it would be a struggle. Like it would be a struggle to live in San Diego on that salary. It would be a real struggle, and that's tough, and it would be a sacrifice. But these guys, it's not living comfortably. They are just literally taking investors' money and just pumping it straight into their bank accounts. They're paying themselves $900,000 a year. That is crazy. Um, yeah, I can't believe that. And then most investors paid 80 cents a share, but then they let his wife acquire 2 million shares for $27,000, which is just a penny a share or something. Offered a limited number of shares at 1 penny. Now, see, this is the kind of stuff that I thought maybe the Wall Street Journal was going to say about Aptera, is that they were doing this kind of stuff, like letting their family member buy Aptera stock at like 1 penny per share. But there's none of that. So I think this article was pretty. Boxable came out looking real bad in this article, and I think they deserve to look bad because look at this salary is crazy, and selling shares to their wife for 1% of what they're selling it to their crowdfunding their supporters. That is a scam. That is immoral. But Aptera is, I think they're doing it right. I mean, you can second guess how much they're paying the founders. You can get second guess many of their decisions, but they have intent to build. They're doing something difficult. There is some timeline slippage, but they're making progress, and they're being transparent about it. And actually, Aptera today came out with a statement. And this statement is clearly a response to the Wall Street Journal article. And it basically says that they are proud to utilize crowdfunding. And and what they say is, for a long time, startups had to go to venture capital. And venture capital basically would determine who succeeds and who doesn't succeed. Yeah, so unlike traditional fundraising where large venture capital firms and investment banks hold control over company decisions and mission, crowdfunding empowers the world to choose which visionary projects come to market. And I think that is, this crowdfunding is definitely a threat to traditional VCs. And I think in many ways they don't like that. And there's definitely some downsides to crowdfunding. There is a chance that people think that this is a way to make money, and they think, oh, this company has a product that sounds great, and I'm gonna put my money into it and do well. And in all likelihood, you're not. Statistically, you're gonna lose all your money crowdfunding these startups. A few of them are going to make it. I sincerely hope Aptera is one of them, especially since I've invested my own money into them. But again, I've invested an amount that if I lose it, then my life doesn't change materially. It doesn't make a big difference to me one way or the other. I love the idea. I love the company. I want to support them. I want to do what I can to help them succeed. But I'm under no delusion that I'm going to get rich because of my investment in Aptera, or that it's going to be one of like my best investments. That's definitely not my expectation. But they said that they feel like we should let the people decide. It's a kind of a democratization of startup financing. And that has some potentially good things and potentially bad things. One of the good things is there's this thing called wisdom of crowds, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this concept, but it stems from this statistician named Francis Galton. He watched 800 people guess the weight of an ox at a county fair back in the early 1900s, and people's guesses were way off, but the median guess, the middle guess out of that crowd, and this is a crowd of 800 people. I mean, they don't know how much an ox weighs, was within 1% of the actual weight. So very, very close. This has been repeated multiple times and found to be very true. People are very good at guessing. If you average a large crowd, they are very good at guessing and predicting things. And we don't know why that is. But what's different is that in most of these scenarios, people's guesses are based on their own guess without being influenced by the guesses of others. But in crowdfunding, it's very social. Like people talk to each other, and certain things get more press and get more exposure, and so it's a slightly different than that. But there is something to say that there is a wisdom in crowds. And also, if you think about it, venture capitalists are not great either. I mean, you just have to look at Theranos. Theranos was basically backed by a bunch of professional investors and venture capitalists, and obviously you see that didn't work out well for them. But I encourage you guys to read this response from Steve and Chris. I think that they did a good job, and it makes me feel good because they're saying, "Hey, we take the support of the crowd, the crowdfunders, the supporters, the investors very seriously." And they take that as a kind of a trust, and they do not want to break that trust. And this is not the kind of statement that that someone uh, who is scamming you would say, I guess, unless they have absolutely no morals whatsoever. And they just, like, maybe I'm not the best judge of character, but they do not strike me as that kind of people. I always feel very, every time I talk to them, I feel reassured, basically. Um, and I feel like I know that they want to make this product, and I know they want it to succeed. And maybe we don't agree with all their decisions or the way that they're going about things, but they really believe in this idea. They really want to bring it to market, and they really want to deliver a good product to us. I mean, that is their goal. Whether or not they get to that goal is up in the air, but that is their goal. And I sincerely believe that's their goal. Um, Whether or not people that are investing their money into them are gonna make money, I don't know. I hope so, but we don't know. Um, but they basically say, we believe that transformative ideas should not be constrained by risk-averse corporate or venture capital. As we've seen in the marketplace, simply having significant financial backing from a big venture capitalist does not guarantee long-term success. That's true. 80 to 90% of them fail. We feel validated that over 47,000 people have chosen to reserve in Aptera, and our crowdfunded investors support our roadmap for the futures. Ideas backed by the people, for the people, have the potential to thrive, built upon an engaged community invested in their success. This is the future Aptera envisions, a future that embraces inspiration and promises a better tomorrow for all. We plan to continue our open dialogue with the community. We do not take our responsibility. This is like probably the most important statement. We do not take our responsibility to the crowd of dedicated supporters lightly. Aptera remains committed to honesty, transparency, and most importantly, to delivering on the promise of solar mobility. Like that was very reassuring to me, actually. I don't know if it's reassuring to anyone else, but it was very reassuring to me, and I thought this was a great letter and a great open letter to everyone. Yeah. So let me know what you guys think about this Wall Street Journal article. If you have a chance to read it, it's behind a paywall, but you can get it from the Internet Archive. I'll link it in the description below, and then I'll link Aptera's letter in the description below. So let me know what you guys think of the Wall Street Journal article and of Chris and Steve's response to it. I thought the response was quite good, and I'm happy they put it out. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.